Have you struggled with consistency? Do you struggle with consistency? If this is something that has been a problem for you, then this episode is one that you are not going to want to miss because we are going to be talking about 7 strategies, simple strategies that you can use to help you be more consistent with the things that you are telling yourself that you want to make time for. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Does consistency elude you? Now, I have been publishing an article a week consistently for over 6 years. It is something that I do with religiosity. And yet, I also take a lot of time off. I took 12 weeks off last year over the course of the year. I have spent time recovering from cancer over the last few years. And I'm currently experimenting with a 4-day work week. And I have a very full client schedule with coaching sessions and speaking gigs and the like. And I don't say this to brag, I promise, not at all. I'm sharing this for context because people often ask me how I'm so consistent with this task in particular of writing an article, how I've never missed a week. And because I don't have a consistency secret superpower, but rather I just have something that anyone can do, right? Anyone can do something consistently if they have the desire to, including you. And so I want to share with you the strategies that I use to be consistent, to make this thing happen. And I want to share with you these strategies because you can also apply them to whatever it is that you do. So, writing might not be your thing. You might not be trying to write an article a week. That is fine. This is still going to be relevant information for you. I bet there is something that you have struggled to be consistent with. Now, for me, writing falls into the camp of important but not urgent, right? Nothing truly bad is going to happen if I don't publish for a week or even 5 weeks. And when I work with folks, making time for the important but not the urgent is often one of the biggest struggles that folks come in with, right? When we start working together, people want to make time for the important stuff, but the urgent stuff crowds it out. So, as I share with you these strategies, I want you to just replace in your head writing with whatever that thing is that you're trying to do, that you're trying to be more consistent about. So maybe for you, it's about strategic thinking time in your job, or maybe you want to read more, or maybe you want to exercise more, or maybe you want to make time consistently for your hobbies, or for learning new skills, or for staying up to date on your industry, or it's something else entirely, right? But I want you to be thinking in your head about how you can apply these strategies to whatever that thing is that you have been telling yourself you want to do more consistently, but you aren't yet doing consistently. So here are a bunch of strategies that I use that just might work for you as well. So the first one is I batch process. Now, I didn't always do this, but I certainly do now. So in fact, I write on planes. Whenever I'm on a plane, I make sure to set my Google Docs to offline access and I draft as many articles as I can until I don't feel like writing anymore. Right? I don't set an arbitrary goal. I just start writing and I stop when I feel done. Now, if I don't have any flights coming up, as is often the case, then I'll block a half a day or so in my calendar every once in a while for drafting these articles. This way, when I sit down to edit and publish, I'm already like 75% of the way there, and the barrier to actually publishing is much, much lower. Now, additionally, if I'm going to be on vacation or out of the office for some other reason, I'll batch publish. When I took a sabbatical last year, I actually pre scheduled 7 weeks of content, 7 weeks of articles to be dripped out, to be published, to be emailed out while I was gone. And that way, people were still getting my articles, but I didn't have to actually do them in the moment. So I was batch processing even the publishing. Now, another technique that you can use is to protect time early in the week and early in the day, as early as makes sense for you. Now, I am not a morning person, so I am not suggesting that you would wake up early to make something like this happen, but just whatever early means for you. So, the first thing that I do every Monday morning, even before I have processed my email or even looked at my email, is to edit and publish an article. If you have something important that you want to do, the later you leave it in the day or even in the week, the more likely you are to give in to the tyranny of the seemingly urgent and to make exceptions to your goal. So if something is important to you, do it early in the week, early in the day, whatever early means for you. Now, another technique is to plan and schedule in advance. So, the time to publish the article, my weekly article, is in my schedule. It's built into my schedule. It is planned for. I don't leave it up to chance. I don't just hope that I'll have the time. I include it in my plans as a non negotiable. Now, if you've ever heard that parable about making sure that you put the big rocks into the jar first, and then you put in the pebbles and then the sand, because if you do the opposite, you're only going to have room for the sand. Well, this thing, this writing, for me, this is a big rock. I have to put it in first. Whatever your big rocks are, you want to figure out when in your schedule you're going to have time for and plan around them instead of just hoping that you're going to have that time. Now, another thing you can do is to processize or to make something easier to follow. So, I have a checklist for the steps that are required to get an article from idea to published. And every week I follow the steps. That way, I don't need to recreate the wheel every time. I don't even have to remember any of the steps. I'm using my brain to focus on the thing that I'm doing instead of remembering all the pieces that have to do with it. Because when you have to remember all those pieces, that provides barriers to actually being consistent, to getting it done. Now, another strategy, and this one is a biggie, is to resist perfectionism. If you wait for something to be perfect, you will never get it out into the world. Perfection is an impossible goal. Now, it's basically guaranteed that every time I publish something, there's bound to be at least one typo in it, even if I've proofread it multiple times. And don't worry, I'll hear about it from my dad, and then I will go and fix it. He likes to proofread everything that I write after the fact. Now, if you struggle with knowing when to stop or knowing what's good enough, then you could try giving yourself a time limit. A time limit can really be helpful with perfectionism, right? So personally, I limit myself to 90 minutes on Monday mornings to edit an article, film a related YouTube video, and a short video for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And no, you will not see me dancing there. And then I publish, right? So when those 90 minutes are done, I hit publish. It is not perfect. It's the best I can do in 90 minutes. And that's okay. Now, another thing that I do, and this one may or may not be as relevant to whatever your goal is here. But if you're trying to get something out into the world, this can be relevant. And this is that I repurpose things from time to time. So every once in a while, I will repost a relevant article. I tend to do this around the winter holidays because that content it tends to be the same or relevant every single time of year. So these are things about how to de-stress around holiday planning, et cetera. No matter what holidays we celebrate, we probably could use some tips around how to de-stress them, especially when a big family is involved, right? And so I repurpose some content from time to time. And then the last strategy that can help you be consistent is to keep an idea log. Basically, don't start from nothing. So, for instance, with writing, for me, I have a spreadsheet where I keep a backlog of all of my ideas, and it has, probably 500 ideas on it right now, and it keeps growing. And every time I think of something I'd like to write about or an interesting idea, I just add it to that list. And that way, whenever I sit down to write, I'm never starting with nothing. I'm already starting with ideas. Now, how can you apply a concept like this, right? If writing is not your thing? Well, let's say you want to make time for reading. Keep a list of all the books that you want to read that you hear about or that others recommend to you so that whenever you have time for reading, when you've built that into your schedule, you already know what to read, and that's not a barrier. Or let's say you want to make time for research related to your field. Keep a list of articles, of research journals, et cetera, so that you're not wasting your precious time to set aside just looking for something that fits into the category that you want to do. Now, what about exercise, right? If you're trying to be more consistent with exercise, try to make a plan of what you'll do when the time comes. So, what exercise are you going to do? Where is it? Are you going to the gym? Are you doing something in your house, et cetera? Don't start from nothing. Now, I would love to know what strategies of these have you already tried? What works for you? Or if you have strategies for being consistent that I haven't shared here, can you share them with me? I would love to know. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with somebody who could use a little less stress in their life. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're excited to take action or you need a little extra support, check out the free resources available on my website or schedule a free consultation call with me. You can do both of these at alexishasselberger.com. See you next time.